Okay, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Jan Overnay. I'm a technical product content marketing manager at Squirro, and I'm very happy to be your host today for this webinar. Um, while the last few participants are joining, we've prepared a short poll, and we'd love to know where you currently stand regarding today's topic. So you should see a window pop up in just a second on your screen. Um, there you go. I hope it's there. Um, Manufacturing is largely mastered physical automation. Now, the next logical step is cognitive automation and the digitalization of entire workflows. And what we'd like to know from you is where are you currently hitting the biggest hurdles in your on this journey? So, is it regarding data silos? Is it regarding the lack of precision? Is it in terms of governance and security? Or is it more the do-it-yourself trap? So the lack of internal resources or expertise to scale beyond small, isolated applications. I'd like to give you another half minute or so to respond to the poll, and then we'll take a quick look at the results. All right, just a short while longer. Okay. All right, so let's stop here. So what we do see is there's a bit of a spread. So precision does not seem to be the biggest issue. Data silos is clearly a topic, and the do-it-yourself trap. So the inability or the difficulty in scaling is clearly also a challenge. And in today's webinar, we will be exploring these specific operational hurdles and looking at how they can be overcome, like really focusing on the reality in regulated environments, from bridging fragmented data silos to building traceable decision intelligence that scales in production. So this is really aligned with the topic of our webinar today. Now, to show you how this transformation really succeeds in practice, we have some excellent guests lined up for you. First, we'd like to welcome Vanessa Marks. So Vanessa is team lead of software product management at ZwickRoell. As many of you know, ZwickRoell is a global leader in materials testing systems. And as a Squirro customer, they're already using AI very successfully. So Vanessa's team uses GenAI directly across the value chain in R&D and after sales. And they're even looking to apply it to physical testing machines. So welcome, Vanessa. Oops. Next, we're joined by Thomas Baus. Thomas is the regional manager for DACH at STX Next, as well as Thomas Jach, who is their head of AI. Now, just for context, STX Next is our development partner here for data and AI, helping customers integrate the Squirro platform. And beyond working with Squirro, STX Next also has supported countless clients on their journey to integrate GenAI into their operations. So we're really excited to hear Thomas Baus and Thomas Jach share their experiences with us. So welcome both of you to the webinar. And finally, we have Ricardo Garcia, Senior Account Executive EMEA here at Squirro. And in his daily work with enterprise clients, Ricardo ensures that AI investments are built on a solid, proven foundation. So Squirro provides the deterministic semantic layers, search capabilities, and the governance required to make enterprise AI and agentic workflows production ready. So hello, Ricardo. Now, before we dig in, let's take a quick look at the agenda. So after this brief introduction by myself and by Ricardo, Vanessa will show us how ZwickRoell uses Squirro to scale their knowledge management from R&D all the way to the shop floor. And then Thomas will dive, or the two Thomases actually, will dive into the technical aspects. They will discuss how to securely adopt AI in an enterprise environment and how to avoid some of these common do-it-yourself pitfalls and scaling traps. So really honing in on the topics that popped up in the quiz and the poll before. Finally, we'll open the floor to a Q&A session. For housekeeping, really quickly, this session is being recorded. We'll send the recording and the presentation slides to you by email in the coming days. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them into the Q&A window that you can find in the menu bar at the bottom. We've set some time aside at the end of the presentation, at the end of the webinar, to discuss these in more detail with our experts. Okay, now with that, I'll pass the word up to Ricardo Garcia for the next slide. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Sure. Thanks a lot for the introduction, Jan. I'll keep it very short. Today is all about content and learning about real life use cases. Since we have a few new faces in the round in the participants, I'll still take 2-3 minutes for some context setting on what is actually the Squirro technology. So we all are on the same page when we see afterwards the use case that Vanessa will present that was built on this foundation. So in very simple terms, the Squirro technology, it's an enterprise generative AI platform that allows you to use the power of language models like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., on your own company's internal data in a safe and secure way. So think of plugging ChatGPT on your company's data and chatting with these documents. In very simple terms, we connect with data sources on the left, SharePoint, Confluence, etc. We analyze and process this data and make it available in Squirro. Afterwards, user can search and can chat with this information and also build agents and automations on top to get the most of GenAI value. And all of this done in your own company's secure context. Overall, the main use cases we focus on is knowledge management. So Squirro has over a 10-year history at working with unstructured data, connecting it to AI models and giving access to employees. So naturally, the foundation of what we do is knowledge management, giving a person access to the right information, the right insight at the right time, and doing that at scale in a secure way. The other critical functions we also focus on is service management, for which you will see the example from ZwickRoell today, risk management, which is what we do more in the regulated environment in the central bank and banking industry, and sales management, which is also something we do a lot in the financial services industry. Typical users and clients of Squirro are in 3 groups. Largely, it's over 60, 70 organizations globally clustered into manufacturing, which what we talk about today, public sector, and financial services. And so setting the stage for Vanessa, today we talk about mechanical engineering and applications in manufacturing, so in industrial environments. And before handing over to Vanessa on the very concrete use case, I'd like to set the stage on typical applications that we see in this industry and how GenAI is being used today in manufacturing companies. So the very first application, one that we saw very early on, is to use search and GenAI for research and development. So whenever we talk about developing new products, there is always a lot of structured and unstructured data involved, scientific papers, research, patent databases, trend monitoring, etc. And so very early on, one of the first use cases we had was in research and development, plugging multiple data sources, scientific papers, past product proposals, patents into one central GenAI interface and using it for accelerating product development and research. A second very obvious area is sales. So this is what we see also across functions, not only in manufacturing. So using GenAI to give sales and commercial personnel a tool to accelerate preparation for client meetings by accessing real-time data from CRMs and summarizing last interactions you had with clients, and also monitoring competitors across the market. A third area that we see emerging is, I called it here, human resource management. This is broader. It's in general using GenAI for day-to-day employee productivity, which can be extremely broad, from summarizing emails to creating proposals to finding a document you were searching. And this is very much a horizontal use case that we see across the board at giving every employee a GenAI tool for their day-to-day work. To conclude, firm infrastructure is another critical application. This we see more and more emerging, is to deploy a GenAI infrastructure across your entire company to not only allow employees to chat with data, but also build agents for their day-to-day tasks and workflow automations. And the last area, which is what we talk about today, and where I'll hand over to Vanessa, is using GenAI for acceleration of support response and quality. So utilizing GenAI to help support employees and technicians to respond to customer requests quicker and in a more accurate way. So the use case we dive into today, go ahead, was a partnership between Squirro, used as the technological foundation, ZwickRoell, who you will hear in a moment, and STX, who was the integration partner that used the Squirro technology together with us to implement the use case that Vanessa will present. And with that, I think we are perfect in time, and I'll hand over the word to Vanessa.
Thanks, Jan and Ricardo, for this kind of nice welcome, and for having us also from ZwickRoell side today in that webinar. I'm very glad to present what we did over the last, basically it's a year now, right? So over the last year, and to showcasing the usage of Squirro at ZwickRoell with basically its current use and future ideas. So maybe for those who do not know ZwickRoell quite well or not have heard about us a lot, I would like to give you just a short introduction about what we do. So basically, ZwickRoell is a company in materials testing. What is material testing? So basically, we destroy everything on purpose to really test how much force or how much pressure a material can hold. And basically, if I'm talking about material, it can be everything. It can be a toy for your kids, but it also can be a textile, which we have on our clothes, basically, how much pressure, how much force it can take, or it can be everything as a part of a car, of an airplane, or whatever we have in our daily business. So this is basically what we do. And for that, there is quite a big portfolio needed. So we have a wide variety of destructive material testing machines, which you can also see kind of some showcases in that picture. And they vary between small desk testing machines up to big one, which have, a load until 5,000 kilonewton, which is already quite big. We are basically headquartered in Ulm, but everywhere in the world. So we have various subsidiaries, production side, as well as local sales and service organizations to really be at the customer's places where customer needs us. In a total number, we have 1,800 employees taking care of all the different needs of our customers in the world, based in service, but also in sales. And we're supporting various industries. It's really going from university over metal and plastics up to pharmaceutical and medical needs. So it's really a huge variety we can offer. And just, maybe to give you a rough number, with our machines, more than 85 million tests are performed every year in different areas of the world, but it's really a kind of a huge number we do. But come to the point where we're here today is basically, of course, with this big kind of product groups we have, which you've just seen in the first intro slides, and this big kind of international diversification also from our different organizations in the world, our really big challenge is to know what we know. So basically, we have one of our main questions we as a company have is how do we find the right information at the right time? So when we're talking about information, it can go into different types. So of course, testing is a highly regulated business. So there's a lot of industry standards available. We have a huge variety of specimen types and testing methods we can offer and we test, but also thousands of different customer and industry specific adaptations. And of course, our machines are premium. So our machines last quite a long time. So we have machine life cycles with over 20 years. So data is basically stored in independent storage locations with different systems. And basically, it's hard, like everywhere, to find the right documentation. So what we try to do is, and what we wanted to check is whether AI might be a solution to help with the challenges we have. And this is basically where we found Squirro. So we took in December 2024, we took the decision to start with Squirro as our knowledge management system. And internally, so maybe if you hear me saying that word, we call it Lexi. So we wanted to place it as our like internal AI knowledge colleague, calling it Lexi, so that Lexi can help us in every of our different situations in our daily business to really support. What impressed us most about the Squirro platform and the offering of Squirro is this kind of variability we can have. So having different data sources, also having the possibility to combine internal and external data gives us a huge kind of potential we can use by finding our data. We don't need to kind of restructure and transform everything into one standardized format, but basically live with the existing chaos we have and make our chaos usable at some point. So basically, that is what gives us a huge potential using what we already have kind of collected, documented, and basically done over the last more than 160 years of our company history, but reuse it also for the future. Additionally, it helps with the basically training and implementation of taxonomy and ontology possibilities. We can use that standard procedures to also speak with our quite special wording somehow we have in materials testing. Additionally, we can reuse access right structures from our basis system so that everybody who is able to see something in SharePoint or in our CRM system can also see it within Squirro. But if you do not have access, we don't need to redo access rights. That gives us a real benefit also for our IT department to not duplicate any access rights and access structures and have a basically real big pain if somebody is changing in that. And also the secured environment where basically the LLM is stored so that not anything of our internal know-how is kind of transferred to any external usage. So that is the kind of most advantages we have. But the last thing which kind of convinced us really is that we're able to not only use Squirro in its existing basically platform offerings with the chat and the search functionalities, but also that we're able to integrate Squirro into our existing company applications, which really gives us big potential by using it internally, but also using it externally. Coming to what we already did and what we have already finished is we have two user groups where we already have Lexi or Squirro implemented as a knowledge management system by now. The first of it is what we call our experience lab. So we have experience lab where companies or customers can book demos, can pre-test whatever they need to pre-test in the vault. So this is what we offer as an additional service. But for those colleagues of us, it's a big disadvantage to have different single data silos, do not have the possibility to find pre-test and already done test configuration. So this is where we first implemented Squirro so that they are able basically to find whatever they have done in the past. So they can now find lots of different standards, which they maybe sometimes also need to summarize. They have access to a huge number of already performed tests, so it can be reused. And this is basically what gives them really, really good benefit. So that either it's simplifying what they do in their daily businesses, in their operative tasks, but also that they can access the knowledge of colleagues by a simple prompt into the system. The second user group is basically our hotline and our service engineers. So we offer quite a variety of different services throughout the life cycle of a machine. It can be between maintenance and inspection or calibration, up to software services, but also, of course, repairs and spare parts, or also machine modernization at the end of a life cycle to start a new one. So for our hotline and service engineers, they have now basically got the access to real information from development to whatever they documented for software, for mechanical reasons, but also for electronical issues without long searching time. We can or they can access every support information from already saved use cases at a hotline from the past, so that also this kind of knowledge is growing, that this kind of knowledge is reused, that one problem is not solved 2, 3, 4 times, but just one, and everybody can access it. And the main advantage is basically that it simplifies the onboarding of new colleagues a lot, even internationally, because everybody can access the same data set, can ask also easy questions where they may not kind of want to ask in real experienced colleagues, and basically combine it with reduced training time. So this is where we really see a lot of benefit already now. And basically we're not stopping here. So we want to kind of drive it further. And we want to extend the usage of Squirro with a lot of additional use cases. And I just put like 3 of them into that slide to give you a short list what we are planning and kind of in near future. So besides making like internal knowledge available, we're currently working in the combination of combining internal knowledge with external information. This is what we call competitor market radar. So we want to gather and analyze information on market trends and competitive landscape with our internal sales knowledge to make it really kind of prepare our sales team in the field for argumentation with customers, for discussions, also about the benefits of our machines. And beside that internal use case, we're currently working on 2 more steps, which we call Lexi for Customers. And you can see on the slide Lexi for Customers and Lexi for Customers 2.0, because it's for us like 2 phases. First of all, we want to have a general chatbot for material testing with specific knowledge based on our website, on our public website, to really make available what we already have on our website and to make that usable for our customers. Additionally, we have a customer portal. So within this customer portal, there are kind of customer-specific documents like service reports, calibration certificates, machine-specific documentation. So everything which could be interesting for a customer related to a machine of us. And basically what we want to do is we want to make that searchable for customers. So they do not need to kind of search for those documents they want to have a look to manually, but they can just ask a chat and the chat gives them the results. So this technically is a little bit more a challenge, but this is where we're currently working on to make that work and to have that basically within the second half of that year. And for the last basically some minutes of my presentation, I also want to give kind of an outlook what we did for our last fair, but also what we kind of try to work on for the future. Because for the last fair, we presented the world's first AI-supported tensor test, which was quite a really interesting showcase. It is a concept. We also call it concept testing machine, which we kind of packed with different technical concepts based on AI features. This is what we showcased last year, 2025, at our exhibition within our headquarters in Ulm. And just to give you a rough overview about Test Expo, we have more than 180 exhibits usually, with around 2,000 visitors coming from over 50 countries, really to our headquarters in Ulm. Ricardo was there last time, so I think he quite liked it, to also showcase the different machines and innovations, but also innovations co-exhibitors have, which also can be showcased at our exhibition we have. And what we did is basically we wanted to understand what is an AI-supported tensor test and how we can make that work for customers. And our concept machine had basically 4 parts in it, which I quickly want to go through basically. So one of the first components which we wanted to start with is really a knowledge management integration into our software for materials testing, which we call Test Expert, and into the machine itself. So we had an AI-based knowledge management so that material testing becomes more accessible. So we wanted to empower anyone to carry out standard compliant tests without any training time. So really to use for a machine operator not working a lot with tensor tests or not working a lot with material tests, to be able to ask questions and at the end get a standard and standard compliant tests back. So this is the support functionality we have been looking for, and which we combined with an agent. This is the second board where we wanted to use really for error reduction. The AI-based agent control was used to handle the software so that nobody needs to know how the software has to be used, but that everybody can just like write into the system, please set the right parameters without need to type in and manually type in the parameters into the testing software. It's also error reduction, but it's also faster setup of the right test. And basically, you do not need to have that quite intensive training. The third component was a visual-based component for testing monitoring. So that the AI advises how to basically use the different components of the hardware itself, how to align a specimen, and basically to check if every of the component a standard requires is put on the test setup. So really to control, to follow the standard requirements, but also check if everything is done quite a correct way. And we closed that basically with an AI-based support in the result analysis. So, statistics is always kind of a pain for a lot of people. So we thought about asking the AI any hypothesis in any natural language that it is kind of easy to discuss about statistical deviations or any other statistical algorithms you usually need to do for testing data. And it worked quite well to get really actionable insights. So maybe that as a quick outlook, this is quite what we found interesting and what we really enjoyed also working together with Squirro, because their support for that topic was really impressive. And we're really looking forward to build the next generation of intelligent AI-driven materials testing, and this not alone. Yeah, those things. And any questions probably later. Looking forward to it.
Okay, well, thank you, Vanessa. It's great to see how ZwickRoell is really moving from knowing what they know, which is already an ambitious first step for any organization, to breaking new ground by building the next generation of AI-driven materials testing actually embedded into the machines themselves. So as our opening poll showed them, these do-it-yourself pitfalls and scaling traps are also still very common when scaling GenAI solutions or enterprise AI solutions. There are a lot of hidden complexities in orchestration, the semantic layer, IT security. All that can quickly morph into obstacles that cause internal rollouts or POCs to fail when you try to scale them. That's probably a situation that many in the audience are familiar with. So, Thomas Baus, as I hand it over to you, could you show us or talk about how STX Next can help customers avoid these types of integration risks? Maybe also introducing STX Next first.
Sure, happy to do that. And thank you for handing over. And I'll start by saying, if you want to have as much fun as Vanessa apparently is having in applying AI in the enterprise with Squirro, definitely you're in the right webinar right now. So I want to talk a bit about what we do as a partner of Squirro, but then also a bit of lessons learned that we have. And as you saw in the beginning, Thomas Jach is also here with me, our head of AI, to dive a bit deeper into the more technical aspects of this. So I'll start with saying STX Next is a company that's really here to make sure we, together with you as a customer, overcome the cumbersome and slow and effortful initial tasks of adopting AI and building a good foundation. We do that with using Squirro so that while you're actually trying to use AI, which is improving your business performance or customer interactions, can actually happen quick. So we do that work not just on a technical implementation level when we implement Squirro as a platform and we configure it on any infrastructure that you prefer. So this is not meant to sit on any hyperscaler cloud. This can, but this doesn't have to. It can also be on your private premise or any of the European sovereign clouds that people may be familiar with. And when we do that, we work with business leaders and use case owners as much as the IT department to make sure that this all fits together in the end. And maybe before we move to the next slide, one thing to keep in mind is Squirro is an accelerator, and we are here to make sure that the accelerator actually functions within your system so that the integrations and the setups are right for your enterprise. So we are here to fast track your success with AI and based on a solid foundation. So if we move to the next slide, there are a few things to keep in mind since we're today talking about manufacturing as an industry. We find customers in that field, especially confronted with the expectation that everything's very simple and quick with AI, since it's now there and it's quite available to everyone. And we drew the comparison on this slide by comparing digital startup SaaS type of companies with traditional manufacturing companies to then conclude why we think it's actually worth exploring AI as manufacturing companies, but also with which perspective in mind you should do it. So 5 things that are maybe good to talk about. Number 1 is, if you're a startup and if you're in digital from day one, your data is in a central place, usually quite well harmonized, and thus accessible easily for any AI use case. In manufacturing, documentation or knowledge to begin with is maybe not even in a digital system. It may be just in a person's head, it may be on a paper, or in best case, some distributed vast amount of PDF files. The second one that may come familiar for you as a manufacturing player will be the product life cycle. So as Vanessa was also indicating in her part, this can be decades in manufacturing business. This can be weeks or months in a digital company. So how you view product and customer interaction is totally different. And also then consequently, your AI use case and your data platform has to be appreciating that as well. The next is this one model fits all and everything's just plug and play. For sure, this is true for digital companies, but in manufacturing companies, and especially those with a bit of a history, these may go well above the 100 years and counting in some cases. You have built an amount of standards and you have customer specific standards and you have maybe acquisitions that bring new standards into the enterprise. So you can't possibly think in one model fits all. You need to really make sure that you cater for all the needs. Bringing us to data. So where is data stored if it's digital? And that brings us to one central database or one central set of data platforms in a digital company, whereas again, in manufacturing companies that we've met, this may be scattered across many systems, sites, this may be in a plant-related database, this may be in headquarters, this may be again in an acquisition. So getting all that into one accessible platform is a task. And then I'll come to the last point before I hand off to Tomasz, which is the most intriguing part that we found in this whole journey. And that was the knowledge of experts and knowledge management, I think is the essence of all of this that we're discussing here. And if you have a workforce that is especially soon retiring, you may find yourself to really having to capture that knowledge and having experts available for the long term and then enabling the new experts. And I think this is one of the biggest, if not the best hidden business case for AI in manufacturing, with which I pass on for a slide to Tomasz.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having us over here. And as Thomas said, there is an old joke in manufacturing. So the most advanced AI system on the factory floor is the guy who's been there for like 30 years and can tell something's wrong just by the sound of the machine. And the punchline is we're not trying to replace him. We're just trying to make sure that when he retires, that knowledge doesn't retire with him. So let me be honest with you for a second, and this is something most vendors won't say out loud at a webinar like this. We've been in rooms where a client shows us a shiny AI roadmap, 10 use cases, beautiful slides, executive buy-in, basically you know the picture. What happens next? Well, 6 months later, nothing is in production. Every single pilot is still running, the roadmap was fine, and the problem was that they tried to do everything all at once. And this ended up doing virtually nothing. So before I tell you where AI works, let me tell you where it doesn't, because that's actually more useful. The where AI doesn't work column on the right-hand side, that's the one I want you to photograph and memorize from this presentation. 3 failure patterns we see consistently. First, no data, or data of such a low quality that no model can compensate. This sounds obvious until you're like 3 months into a project and someone finally asks, where exactly does this came from? We had a client, a large chemical manufacturer, where the data lived across 4 different systems. Nobody knew which was the source of truth or the only source of truth, and half of it was uncategorized PDFs from like a decade ago. That's not a data problem. That's a structural problem, and it has to be solved before you even touch any kind of AI-related systems. Secondly, the process change takes longer than the model. We built a working predictive maintenance model for one of our manufacturing clients. The model was ready in like 8 weeks. The deployment, however, was ready in like 7 months, because changing how a production line engineer receives alerts requires sign-off from like 4 different departments. And the model wasn't the hard part, the organization was. Third, too many POCs running at once. I've seen organizations with 11 active AI pilots and not a single one in production. Each of those has a champion, each one has a budget, but none of them have a transition plan. A proof of concept without a production path is just an expensive way to learn things you could have read in an arXiv paper or any other one on the internet. Now, where it actually works, and I be specific because VOC claims are completely useless. First and foremost, knowledge and document intelligence. We build a RAG system for Linda, retrieval augmented generation over internal technical documents. We were using Haystack, Elasticsearch, and OpenAI for that particular project, and the use case was pretty simple. Engineers uploading documents and getting answers without manually reading through them. Before our approach, like 40 minutes of searching, and afterwards the answer was given in seconds. Same archetype with Node deployed in multiple contexts. We also automated the document processing at a global chemical company. Their procurement team was manually reconciling supplier release schedules from PDF documents. That process is now completely automated, so we extract the relevant data using Python, FastAPI, and PDF Plumber, reconcile it against order status data, and generate actionable outputs. Virtually hours of manual work per week completely gone. And for a professional services firm, we build an LLM pipeline that reads contract PDFs, validates data against their own CRM, and flags discrepancies. Dozens of contracts per month, previously that had to be reviewed manually, now virtually completely automatically. Next, there's predictive and anomaly detection. At the same chemical company that I mentioned before, we built a predictive and maintenance platform on Azure ADX time series database, Neo4j for asset relationship mapping, and PyTorch plus scikit-learn for the models. The system predicts time to failure and can suggest scheduling adjustments before something breaks. But one thing that we almost missed, critical thing we learned. We used SHAP for explainability, not because it was technically relevant, it was, but it wasn't just the only reason, but because the production engineers wouldn't trust the output without it. They needed the proof. They needed to see why the model flagged the machine, not just that it did. And if you're building anything for operators in a plant environment, plan for explainability from day one, even day zero, and it's completely not optional. One of the production printing company is a different flavor. Not failure prediction, but operational monitoring. Industrial printers generating continuous time series signals, temperature, ink levels, pressure, speed across hundreds of units. Think of your printer, but without small problems, scaled thousands or scaled in thousands in a printer farm. We built the data pipeline, AirSync mirroring to the staging area, ClickHouse as the data warehouse, Airflow and Kubernetes for orchestration, and dbt for transformations. Raw signals, not aggregated dashboards, because the engineers told us that aggregation hides the anomalies they actually cared about. That's a lesson worth remembering. Always ask your real users what form of output they trust, not what looks best in demo. We also did the energy price forecasting for day ahead and real-time electricity market trading decisions. The stack was pretty obvious. Databricks, Apache Spark, MLflow, LightGBM. The output fits directly into daily trading decisions, and that's AI where a wrong answer has an immediate financial consequence, which is why the model evaluation process was so rigorous as the model building. Next, agentic workflows. This is the frontier. We build a system log analysis agent connected to a RAC knowledge base. And we use Dynatrace for monitoring data and ServiceNow via MCP protocol. The agent doesn't just retrieve answers. It can reason across multiple sources and initiate actions in downstream systems. Yeah, that's right. That's the direction things are heading. Not ask the AI a question, but AI identifies the problem and opens a ticket. The pattern across everything that actually works is contained scope, clear owner, specific data source, and defined KPIs. Not we just want an AI because everybody has an AI. We want to reduce this specific manual process from 4 hours to 20 minutes using this document corpus with this team as the owner. That's the difference between a pilot that becomes production and the one that quietly disappears from Q4 roadmap review. Hopefully that was interesting for you, and going back to Thomas.
So do I. I'll be quick in just giving you 4 points that you may or may not have sort of like extracted from what Tomasz was outlining. So when you embark on such a project, 4 things you need to take away. One, make sure you have the domain experts in the room from the start. Don't start building pilots of any kind unless you have an actual user or your internal customers involved with the design and why they need it and how, which will make sure, as Tomasz was saying also, you need to have a budget for production. If there is nothing on the roadmap that includes what it would take to run this at scale and in production, don't get started and start from scratch, because I think you're just going to run into a wall. Thirdly, and again, that ties back to what we do very well with Squirro, you want to have a good solid foundation. The last thing you want is a bunch of AI pilots that are flying around in the organization, but nobody ever thought about security or data governance. And the last one is data readiness. And I think this closes the loop to the whole conversation. We want to make sure that you have a solid data foundation, and data being ready means that you actually know where it's coming from, where it's stored, and who put it there, so that then the AI can use it and that your use cases can become successful. With that, I pass on to Jan.
All right, thank you so much. We're doing super well on time. It's been very interesting, and really excited to move towards the Q&A session. We've covered a lot of ground. We saw the tangible impact of GenAI on ZwickRoell's operations. We unpacked the architectural realities of deploying these systems securely with STX Next and Squirro. And before we move on to your questions, let's take a minute to solidify our main takeaways. So first, regarding solving knowledge management at scale, we saw how ZwickRoell bridges fragmented infrastructure, reusing existing access rights and specific terminology to provide labs and service teams with instant summarized access to decades of testing data, complex industry standards, all that without needing to reformat the original data. Then regarding the roadmap to AI-driven materials testing, moving beyond internal knowledge, ZwickRoell is really pushing the envelope by exploring new ways to embed agentic AI and vision-based monitoring directly into their machines. So this transition from search to integrated agent really empowers operators to perform standard compliant tests and complex results analysis using natural language and all that without needing too much training. So that's really an excellent use case. Then finally, yes, from STX Next regarding avoiding all these do-it-yourself mistakes with a production-first mindset. So their message basically was, don't treat security and data governance or data readiness as phase 2 tasks. That's super important. We saw that a proven platform, expert integration can pay off immediately, quickly, by letting you bypass the months of complexity needed to build them from scratch. And this lets you really focus on delivering a continuous stream of high ROI production-ready use cases. So this was pretty packed with information. I hope you were able to take away some nuggets. Briefly, before we move on to the Q&A, we've seen what's possible when you move beyond isolated pilots into real-world production. We also know, of course, obviously, that every enterprise data landscape is unique, and we heard that today as well. So our goal is really to help you cut through the AI noise so that you can build and execute on a concrete roadmap tailored to your specific infrastructure and your specific business objectives. And we can really dive deep into how to build a roadmap for operational AI, ensuring that every insight is directly grounded in your verified technical data and provides a clear, traceable path from raw information to action. That traceability is obviously central. So here, two CTAs. The top one, QR code. You can book a consultation with Squirro. If you'd like to reach out. On the bottom one, you can also book a call with the head of AI of STX Next, for example. So explore the offering that they have on their website as well. And I guess this already brings us to the FAQ. I hope you saw at the bottom of your screen there is a Q&A panel. You can add questions there. There are already a few. Let me have a look. I could pass the first one on to Vanessa. The question is, what challenges did you experience during the implementation of Squirro? And please keep the questions coming. So if you have anything, just type them in, and we'll get to them one at a time. All right, Vanessa.
Thanks, Jan. So basically that is a really good question because that is what everybody wants to know. So not everything is kind of running perfectly smooth. So was our challenges? It was bruised basically until every of these infrastructural setups had been finally done. That was something which took us some time, which was not kind of a challenge because it wasn't working well. It was just like you do a lot of things and you do not see any result out of it. It takes time until then you can really kind of play with the system, see the first things. So that is sometimes in the head of some colleagues, that was kind of a challenge. So when am I able to see the first? Can I use the system now? So that was something we experienced. And the other thing is, like with all the LLM topics, you need to prompt in a good way, and you need to know how to use a prompt or how to write a prompt in a good style. So this is something we experience. You cannot just write in like error 1, 2, 3, 4 and get a good result. You need to define, like you're talking with a colleague, basically, do I want to have an answer for the reason of the error or how to solve it, or what do I want to know? And this is something where we experienced that basically that took a while to understand.
All right, thanks. Ricardo, I think this one could be for you. How do you ensure high quality of responses if the underlying data quality isn't good? For example, we have multiple versions of documents and outdated documents.
Sure, I can take that one. Thanks, Jan. So this is a question that comes up in almost all the conversations we have. Obviously, whenever you talk to a larger company that has legacy data, you can almost be 100% sure that there are outdated documents, contradicting documents, etc. And to be perfectly transparent, obviously, if the data quality is poor, obviously the LLM is not going to fix the data quality. Having said that, there is still a lot that you can do in the whole process without having to clean up your entire knowledge base, improve all your systems, etc. Because, for instance, what we typically have seen that works well is tuning the search and retrieval logic, where you can boost more frequent and newer documents, or for specific types of questions, you can boost specific types of sources. So that's one big lever that you have during your project implementation to influence the retrieval logic of finding the document. And the other element is the customer-specific prompt tuning. So Squirro typically has a set of instructions it follows on how it's supposed to answer questions that it's getting. And we have seen that there's a big lever if we modify these systemic instructions and adapt them to the client's context. So instead of saying you're a friendly AI assistant and your job is to answer questions you get from a user, you are a friendly AI assistant specialized in materials testing, working for the hotline of ZwickRoell and answering specific complicated product questions, etc. And if you combine these two aspects together, we see that the answer quality can improve significantly, even if the underlying data set is not perfect.
Okay, great. Let's see. Would anybody like to take this one? How would you go about continuously checking whether old products still follow the new regulations? I think maybe, or otherwise, have a look at the questions, and if you see some that you feel inclined to answer? The other ones we'll try and get back
So
to.
I can take that one with the regulations. So that's a sharp one. And honestly, there is no clear answer. So we haven't solved it completely, but have some working approaches and have some ideas how to do that. It happened in one of the banks, in one of the regulatory businesses that we have right now. So the bank asked us, okay, we've got a bunch of documents, both internal ones and external client-facing ones, and the regulations change constantly. So how do we make sure that all of those documents fall in line with the specific changes? So first thing that we did, we built the regulatory change monitoring as a data source. So long story short, there's a crawler that feeds the AI system, not just your internal product documentation or internal documents, but also regulatory sources. Think of it, if it has an API as some kind of Polish law regulators have an API that you can just feed the underlying changes, or just a crawler that crawls the EU directives, the sector-specific norms, basically everything that you can think, and feeds it to the LLM itself. Then there's the second thing that we can do. You can have delta detection between document versions. This is like an interesting engineering problem because you need the system to compare the new regulations against the old one and extract what actually changed, not just, hey, there was a change or this document was updated. LLMs are quite reasonably good in that if you give them both versions and ask the right questions and ask the right prompts as we mentioned before. Next, there's cross-reference mapping, so regulation mapped to product. This requires some upfront work, so you need the structured map of which products or product families are certified at which standards. Then you can just make that app and you can use that not to reinvent the wheel or reinvent everything from scratch, but just, hey, those 14 product rights reference this change and you need to address the specific problems. Last but not least, always remember about the human review in the loop. So you don't ever want to have fully automated compliance decisions. The output should be, hey, these products may be affected, here are the relevant clauses, here's the summary, LLM-generated summary, and human needs to confirm. Not a green light, but a triage. And that would probably be it that I would suggest on that.
Thanks a lot, Thomas.
Then, Jan, maybe I take over the next one, which is already directly addressed to me, right? So how did we drive adoption or training from people who aren't AI native to digital native? So yeah, that is, I don't want to say kind of digital native now. We're still on our way. It still takes time, but basically it is like training. Take them by the hand, reduce their hesitancy towards new systems. So it's really like doing change management in its basic, just with AI like adaptation, not only with new system implementation. So it is really start from the very ground and then be continuously involved, continuously feedback loops, taking the fear of the colleagues, because of always or in most cases, there is often a fear behind that they are afraid of losing job, that they're afraid to be kind of unneeded anymore. So really taking that real life, taking that honest, and then try to adapt. And maybe also the next one, how to measure success, efficiency gain, customer satisfaction, revenue impact, or something else entirely. For us, it's a combination of several ones. So of course, internally, so having the internal system implemented is efficiency gains, either by getting speed and finding information, or also in how many cases do developers need to support at hotline? Because if hotline isn't able to answer something, they go to the development departments and ask for support. And of course, that is limiting their capacity to rework on new topics. So the more development can focus on what they should work and the less they support hotline, that is really getting speed onto different development projects. So this is one-time efficiency, but also having done the ones really addressed to customers, to our end customers directly. It's a combination of customer satisfaction, but also revenue in case if we then sell it at one point, which is not yet, but at one point as a software as a service offering with integrated into our products. But here we aren't yet, so that is still a way to go.
Okay, there's one on advice for manufacturers who would like to do it in-house. That's always an exciting topic. Would anybody like to jump on that one?
I can
So
start and then.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Ricardo.
Yeah, I can start and then let STX, the experts, take over. Obviously, it's always an interesting question whether you should buy or build a solution. Naturally, at Squirro, we are biased towards the buy and recommend you don't try to build your platform on your own. There's a lot of challenges. But since we're here in an educational format, I think I want to outline the different dimensions to consider if you do want to build in-house. And there's a couple of aspects to consider. Number one is time to market. So naturally, building in-house takes time. So you need to make sure that you have an expert team that on the one hand manages the solution and has enough capacity and know-how to build such a solution. The maintenance is super critical because once you build a platform, that's only half of the story. The second one is security, which is very critical. So you need to make sure that you cover security from the get-go, and these are frequently only topics you find out at a later point. Once you connect systems and you realize you need to replicate access rights, you need to make sure data is protected, you need to make sure that only employees access what they're allowed to see and nothing else. So security is absolutely critical from day one and is one of the most important factors where things break once if you do build in-house. And the third point is scalability. So a system needs to be designed to be able to scale over time. So we spoke about this in the webinar a lot. One thing is to build an AI solution where you can chat with 100 documents and summarize emails. Another story is to build a system where you connect 5 different data sources with several millions of documents and thousands of users. So designing a system with scalability from the start is very critical. So to summarize, capable team, security, and scalability are the 3 most critical dimensions. Naturally, we from Squirro have a biased view. We would recommend you to work with vendors and at least consider a partnership.
All right,
So
great.
very,
Tomasz,
very
is there
well
anything
said.
you would like to add? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So very well said. Just a couple of things maybe to add. So first, as it was said before, hiring just one AI person usually doesn't work because this person ends up for spending like 80% of their time on data plumbing, cleaning, connecting systems, basically looking for data, looking for champions, negotiating accesses, and maybe just 20% on actual modeling. That's why what we emphasized before, having the whole team, like a data engineer, an ML engineer, maybe someone who can translate between the business and the technical team. That's the people that you can build with, that we can build with, not just with an AI engineer. Second, what it came with multiple of our approaches, start with a use case that has a known answer. I know it's a little bit counterintuitive, but don't start with something open-ended like improve our knowledge management. Start with something where you already know what good looks like a process that's currently manual with a measurable baseline and with a clear KPI, owned by one person who will champion it. That's your first project, just to open the doors, and everything else comes a little bit after. If I had to one-line it, if your core competitive advantage is genuinely in the AI itself, the algorithm, the proprietary data, the model, build it in-house, protect it. But if an AI is just a means to an end, faster knowledge retrieval, better maintenance scheduling, document processing, then partnership or partnering for the build and keeping the operation in-house is usually where partnering is way faster and cheaper. You get the production in months instead of years, and you still own the system afterwards.
All right, thank you. I think we're coming up on time, so if there's any remaining questions, we can respond to them by email, I think. But with that, this really brings us to the end of our session today. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Vanessa, Thomas, and Ricardo for all the insights. And of course, thanks for all the great questions and for sticking with us until the very end. Just a quick reminder before we wrap up, we will share the full slide deck and the link to the recording via email in the coming days. If we didn't have time to address your specific question during the Q&A session, don't worry, we will be following up with you directly via email. Then obviously we know that every enterprise environment is unique. And if you're curious about how this architecture actually maps to your specific data landscape, your internal workflows, please just reach out. We'd love to have a coffee, virtual or otherwise, and walk through the technical details with you. And remember, this webinar is part of an ongoing series where we look at real-world AI deployment. So keep an eye out for upcoming sessions. With that, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all a very productive remainder of the week. So thank you and goodbye.